This is a book I've written about my own family's experience of Japan during the years that have been called in Japan Kurai Tanama, or Dark Valley, the dark valley that was the lead from Japan's invasion of Manchuria in September 1931 to Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. My parents sailed for Japan within a few months of the invasion of Manchuria. My brother, sister, and I were born during those years, and our family left Japan on the last Japanese ship to cross the Pacific before the outbreak of war in 1941.
Despite this story being set in a rather sensitive period of Japanese history, the book has been translated into Japanese and was already sold out its first edition. So my mother, father and I decided to go to Japan to meet people involved in the publication, our family history, and to learn more about Japan. It was a 12-hour flight that arrived in Tokyo at 9 AM, so that's 1 AM in UK terms. When you're jet-lagged, dealing with Japanese signs can be a bit tricky. From the train, you got a real sense of the scale of Tokyo. Its nominal population is 13 million, but if you ignore its political boundaries, it's more like 30 million. We are staying at the house of Mr. Hojo, who had been involved in the translation of Mum's book into Japanese, and of course we are greeted with tea.
When I went to Episcopal High School in Alexandria, Virginia, I taught how to make tea.
Oh,
you
okay.
can.
Okay.
As hard as you can.
Oh, you can.
Ah,
Whoa, okay. After tea, we went for a walk around the local area to get a sense of how so many people live so close together. Despite Tokyo's size, there's a real sense of locality and location, and Mr. Hojo seems to know everyone, including this rice seller.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. A conch shell player. Yes!
There's also a deep sense of tradition. We visited a local Shinto shrine. Shinto is the native religion of Japan and influences virtually every aspect of Japanese culture and society. There are no systemized rules in Shinto, no dogmatic text to follow, so there's even a shrine to business success, which I thought was a jolly good idea if I visited.
You tend to talk about Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines.
A Shinto shrine.
Shinto believes that everything, even vegetables, have a spirit, or kami.
Vegetables and fruit and things.
And they don't mind throwing in a bit of Buddhism just to cover the bases. In fact, Mr. Hojo was due to go with us the next day to a Christian festival. But in the meantime, he was happy to pay his respects to the Shinto/Buddhist temple, and also to pay his respects to the local Shinto priest.
10月でしたか、はい、10月14日お帰りやね、はい、僕はね11日からまたあそこへ留守になる。
A selfie in a Shinto shrine. In all the hubbub of a big city, it's important to find places of peace, and there was a nice park quite close to where Mr. Hojo lives. This gate is apparently 1662. it was originally built. So a pretty ancient gate. 2 years before they discovered Cronenberg, of course. Don't feed the pigeons. Don't leave your hand in the park, or something like that. More Japanese signage. And quite interesting, road repair or works equipment here. As well as trains, bicycles seem to be one of the main ways of getting around, as we weaved our way back to Mr. Hojo's house for supper. The Hojos prepared a delicious teppanyaki, and were helped out by their 13-year-old grandson. The teppanyaki is a great way of communal eating, and it's great fun too.
We might call it bacon.
We now have soba noodles on our teppanyaki, and sake, cooking sake is in there as well. So I'm not sure how long there will be soba noodles with the sake in there.
Do you drink it warm or cold?
It depends. In summer, most people like cold sake.
Cold sake.
But in winter, they like to drink warm
Sake.
sake.
Yes.
But sorry, I never drink sake.
Only beer.
Only beer.
This is the Mount Fuji of cabbage.
Mount Fuji and Mount Cabbage.
The next day we took a train to St Andrew's Church in Tokyo, a church where my mother's father had used to preach. We were expecting to meet various people who had known my mother's family, and we were not disappointed. We even met my mother's nanny's granddaughter.
Grandmother looked after us when we were small. She was our nanny.
It's me.
Yes, lovely.
Oh, your back side.
Yes, lovely. That's Thomas House.
The sharing of photos continued long after the service. When we finally got away, we decided to cover our religious bases and visit the famous Buddhist temple of Sensoji, nestled beneath the Tokyo Skytree, the tallest structure in Japan. According to legend, the temple houses a small statue of the Buddhist goddess of mercy, found in the Sumida River by two local fishermen in the year 628. But in fact, not even the temple priests have ever seen it. Right next door, you won't be surprised to hear, there's a Shinto shrine. It's immensely ornate. People come here to make all sorts of prayers, to all sorts of gods. This includes some slightly eerie statues devoted to the departed spirits of children. The entertainment outside strikes a slightly less sombre tone. That evening we went to a meal to celebrate the translation of my mother's book into Japanese and the sellout of its first edition.
She is hoping that many Japanese will read this book and know how much your father contributed to the Japanese.
Even I had to say a few words.
Looking over his shoulder still.
And despite my mother's best efforts, my father even got to tell one of his jokes.
And the garage owner said, "Oh, you were lucky. Because had it been a black horse, you would have been in trouble. Because the black horse knows nothing about cars." That's a very
With
surreal
normal results.
Very difficult to translate.
But the food was delicious. And the presents, as always in Japan, generous. The next day we set off out of Tokyo and headed towards Kawaguchi. This is a much more mountainous area of Japan, and of course the most famous of them all is Mount Fuji, the volcano, which stands at over 12,000 feet. It last erupted in 1707, and today only an occasional puff of steam breaks through its crust. My grandfather had climbed Mount Fuji in the early 1930s. We didn't have time to climb Mount Fuji, but we did have a chance to explore the area. There are 8 springs around the base of Mount Fuji, each with their own special significance. There are also Shinto shrines, devoted to protecting the mountain's spirit. There are many things we found puzzling in our visit to Japan, including the general absence of chairs.
Yes.
The necessity to use chopsticks. Unfamiliar foods.
My goodness.
Beds on the floor. Communal bathing arrangements. Toilets rigged up with water spraying technology. The requirement to use ticket machines wherever possible. The wearing of face masks on public transport. And the Japanese love of the taki. But the generosity and kindness of the people we have met and the beauty of our surroundings have made it easy to cope with. The view from our hotel bathroom. But there is no question Japan is a surreal place. When we'd gone to bed, there was Mount Fuji. But when we woke up, it was gone. We decided to investigate. We found evidence of volcanic rock.
Looks like it just missed us.
But when we went on the rooftops, Mount Fuji was still just not there. We did see some suspicious looking customers. These two looked innocent in comparison. We decided to seek help at a Shinto shrine. And immediately received a positive sign.
Mount Fuji in curry form.
But we were just not convinced, so we headed to one of the 5 lakes.
Some stage we have to have a ride in.
The teddy bear boats didn't look up for the job, although the submarine looked promising. But we were just fishing in the dark. We had pretty much given up and were admiring the flowers, when suddenly we saw a glimpse. A pretty small glimpse, but a glimpse nevertheless. We gave thanks at the local Shinto shrine and relaxed by Kawaguchi Lake. fully confident Mount Fuji would be back in its rightful place by the morning. That night we celebrated with a feast of, well, we weren't quite sure what some of it was, but there were a lot of grapes, and of course beer.
And our very kind driver. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course sake. It was to be a night of triumphs, as I came up with an answer to the Japanese futon.
My enhancement to the Japanese futon. The 6-mattress futon with extension.